guys, didn't see you there, but I'm glad you're here. Let's talk about Jane Eyre.
Hello, and welcome back to another Crash Course video. Today we will be discussing the book Jane Eyre. The author, Charlotte Bronte, uses a unique approach which we call the biographical approach. We will be exploring character resemblance between characters in Jane Eyre and in Charlotte Bronte's life, as well as similar qualities that Jane and Charlotte share. Sam Jordanson from The Guardian says, among Bronte's many talents is an ability to make you feel that you are seeing the world just as her narrator does. First, we are going to address the characters we saw resemble people in Charlotte Bronte's life. First, we have Jane Eyre. How can we describe Jane? Not your typical girl, all right. She holds great independence, and she grew up as an orphan with an aunt that neglected her. Charlotte can be compared to Jane. Charlotte is found to have held all of the same morals, and she also grew up as an orphan with an aunt that neglected her. Charlotte also wrote her book, Jane Eyre, under the penship name of Currer Bell so that she didn't experience gender discrimination. Moving on from comparing Jane Eyre to Charlotte Bronte, we will now be comparing the two people of Mrs. Reed and Mrs. Branwell. Now we have Miss Reed. This is the abusive aunt whom we grow to dislike as she treats Jane immorally. In a scene where John throws an object at Jane, we see them say, "Then Mrs. Reed subjoined,
'Take her away to the Red Room and lock her in there.'
4 hands were immediately laid upon me, and I was borne upstairs." We are going to compare Mrs. Reed to Mrs. Branwell. This is Charlotte Bronte's aunt. She also treated Charlotte the same way that Mrs. Reed treats Jane. The Poetry Foundation says, she was characterized as a gloomy and rigid Methodist who cast a pall of moral reproval over the lives of the little Brontes. She wasn't a fun aunt, now was she? Moving on from comparing Mrs. Reed to Mrs. Branwell, we will now be discussing the similarities between Helen Burns and Maria Bronte. Next, we have the very complex character, Helen Burns. When Jane moves to Lowood, Helen is the only one who loved her and cared for her and was her very best friend. From the book, it says, "How could it be otherwise, when Helen at all times and under all circumstances evinced for me a quiet and faithful friendship, which ill humor never soared nor irritation ever troubled? She was the only one that Jane could rely on and could talk to. Helen was a good listener and understood Jane. Helen tragically died of typhus, which shook her to her very core." We can compare Helen Burns to Charlotte's sister, Maria Bronte, who also fell ill and died from typhus. Seeing as she was her sister, she meant a lot to Bronte, and her death was devastating. Along with these 3 characters that we just discussed, there are many more characters and aspects that closer reflect Charlotte Bronte's life. If you read Jane Eyre, you will see how she values independence and self-worth. Charlotte and Jane both feel that these are key aspects to a good life. And now it's time for the open letter. Let's see what we have here. A letter from Sydney Lohman from Columbia, South Carolina. Sydney asked, what morals do the author and Jane Eyre share?
Oh.
Great question, Sydney. Now let's see what Margaret Ford says from New York City, New York. What was the point of using the biographical approach? That's a great question too, Margaret. Funny thing is, we're about to address that right now. To answer your question, Sydney, first we will talk about feminism. As you can see, Charlotte felt her ideas were very important to express, seeing as she had to write under a male name, but she would go through any obstacle to be able to share her opinions. Also is the importance of independence. This is expressed through Jane when she refuses to marry Rochester until she's found her true independence inside. And although she lost a bit of it when she married him, she still felt that she was independent and she had that freedom to leave and make her own decisions. The importance to using the biographical approach. That can come in a lot of many different ways. First of all, her putting her own personal story and her own personal feelings into the book makes it much easier for us as readers to make an emotional tie to not only the author herself, but the characters in the book. And we have the ability to feel sympathy for them, and it just brings our interest in, and we are able to connect to them in a totally new way. A huge shout out to Sydney and Margaret for those fantastic questions. Well, that's all the time we have for today, folks. Thanks for listening. Come back next week for another video about Jane Eyre. And for all you procrastinators out there, I'm your girl. Thanks for watching. This is John Green, signing out.